"We need a miracle," the airport manager said as Flight 447 circled overhead with failing engines. "Our emergency pilot won't make it in time." That's when a voice from the back of the control tower said, "What if I told you your miracle has been delivering pizzas here for 2 years? Welcome to the human stories." Before we continue this incredible story, tell us in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if you think stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We're growing every day, and I sincerely thank you for being part of it. The night everything changed Tuesday evening at Denver International Airport was supposed to be routine. The control tower hummed with its usual organized chaos, departures, arrivals, weather updates flowing in steady streams. But at 8:47 p.m., everything changed with a single radio transmission that would turn an ordinary night into something nobody would ever forget. Tyler Martinez adjusted his pizza delivery bag as he walked through the terminal's back corridors. At 22, he had been making these deliveries to the airport staff for nearly 2 years now. Same route, same customers, same quiet efficiency that had become his trademark. The control tower was his last stop tonight, a large order for the night shift crew who rarely saw daylight and survived on coffee and whatever food could be delivered to their isolated workspace. Tyler preferred the evening deliveries. Fewer people asked questions. Fewer chances for small talk that might lead to uncomfortable territories. The airport staff knew him as the reliable pizza guy who always arrived on time, never complained about the security checks, and kept to himself. That was exactly how he wanted it. As he climbed the narrow stairs to the control tower, Tyler could hear the controlled urgency in the voices above. Something was different tonight. The usual calm professionalism had been replaced by an edge of tension that made his steps slow. He paused at the door, listening. "Flight 447, do you copy? Please respond." The voice belonged to Sarah Chun, the lead air traffic controller. Tyler had been delivering to her for months, and he'd never heard that note of worry in her voice before. Tyler knocked and entered the tower with his usual quiet demeanor. The scene that greeted him was unlike anything he'd witnessed during his routine deliveries. Controllers hunched over their scopes, supervisors pacing behind them. Radio chatter filled with increasing desperation. "What's the situation?" asked James Morrison, the airport operations manager, his voice tight with stress. Sarah looked up from her console, her face pale. "We've lost all communication with United Flight 447. They were on final approach when they reported hydraulic failure and went radio silent. We can see them on radar. They're circling, but we can't reach them." Tyler set the pizza boxes down quietly, but something made him linger instead of collecting payment and leaving as he usually did. On the radar screen, he could see the solitary blip representing Flight 447, moving in a slow, erratic circle 15 miles northwest of the airport. "How many souls on board?" Morrison asked. 180 passengers, plus crew," Sarah replied, her fingers flying over the emergency protocols. "I've contacted our emergency response pilot, but he's currently in Colorado Springs. Even with a helicopter, he won't be here for at least 45 minutes. Tyler watched the radar blip complete another circle. His trained eye could read the pattern. The aircraft was losing altitude gradually, fighting systems failures that were cascading beyond the crew's ability to manage. He'd seen this scenario before, in places and circumstances that felt like a lifetime ago. "What about the crew?" Morrison pressed. "The captain has to have some emergency training. Captain Rodriguez is experienced, but this isn't a standard emergency," Sarah explained, pulling up the flight data. "The hydraulic failure seems to have affected multiple systems. Without communication, we can't guide them through the emergency procedures. They're flying blind in more ways than one." Tyler moved closer to the radar display, his movements careful and unobtrusive. The other controllers were too focused on their emergency procedures to pay attention to the pizza delivery guy. But Tyler was reading the aircraft's flight pattern with an expertise that would have surprised everyone in the room. The blip was descending more rapidly now. Whatever was happening up there was getting worse. "Sir," called out another controller, "I'm showing irregular flight patterns. They're losing altitude faster than they should be." Morrison ran his hands through his hair. "Options. Give me options. We can vector in emergency vehicles, have them standing by, Sarah said. But without communication, we can't help them land safely. This is turning into a survival scenario. Tyler had heard enough. He stepped forward, his voice quiet but clear. What if I told you your miracle has been delivering pizzas here for 2 years? The control room fell silent. Morrison turned around, noticing Tyler for the first time. Excuse me? Tyler looked directly at the airport manager, then at the radar screen showing Flight 447's deteriorating situation. I can talk them down. I can bring them home. Sarah stared at him. I'm sorry, but you're the pizza guy. This isn't... I'm not just the pizza guy, Tyler interrupted, his voice carrying an authority that hadn't been there moments before. I'm a pilot, and I've landed aircraft in conditions worse than this. Morrison's eyes narrowed. Son, I appreciate the offer, but this is a commercial airliner with 180 people on board. This isn't a video game. Tyler walked to the communications console, his movements now showing a confidence that none of the airport staff had ever seen from him. Boeing 737-800, twin-engine commercial aircraft. Maximum seating capacity, 189. Hydraulic failure on approach suggests either primary or backup system compromise, possibly both. Without communication, they're dealing with degraded flight controls and limited landing capability. The technical accuracy of his assessment stopped Morrison mid-sentence. Sarah looked at Tyler with new attention. How do you know that? Tyler met her gaze. Because I've flown them. Not just 737s. Everything from fighters to heavy transport. I spent 6 years as a military pilot before. He paused, the weight of unfinished history hanging in the air. Before I started delivering pizzas. Military pilot. Morrison repeated. What branch? Air Force. Then contract work. Tyler turned back to the radar. Look, we can discuss my credentials later. Right now, that aircraft is in a death spiral, and your emergency pilot won't make it in time. You need someone who understands both the aircraft and emergency procedures. I'm here, and I'm qualified. Sarah checked the radar again. Flight 447 had dropped another 1,000 feet. He's right about the timing. Even if our emergency pilot left Colorado Springs right now. Morrison looked at Tyler with new eyes. You're serious. You're actually qualified to do this. I wouldn't have offered if I wasn't. Tyler moved toward the radio console. But I need to know. Can you patch me through to the cockpit? We've been trying for 20 minutes. They're not responding. Tyler studied the emergency communication panel, his fingers tracing controls with familiar ease. They're responding. They're just not responding to you. Emergency frequency protocols change depending on the nature of the crisis. Have you tried military emergency channels? Sarah shook her head. This is civilian airspace. They wouldn't be monitoring military frequencies. They would if the captain is former military, Tyler replied, already adjusting the radio settings. Captain Rodriguez, I know that name. He flew transport missions in Afghanistan. If he's dealing with a full systems failure, he'll revert to military protocols. Tyler switched to a frequency that the civilian controllers didn't typically use. His voice, when he spoke into the microphone, had transformed completely. Gone was the quiet pizza delivery guy. In his place was a confident, authoritative pilot who spoke the language of emergency aviation. Flight 447, this is Denver Tower on military emergency frequency. How do you copy? Static filled the control room. Then, cutting through the white noise, came a voice filled with relief and desperation. Denver Tower, this is Flight 447. Jesus, where have you been? We've been trying to reach you for 30 minutes. Tyler looked at the stunned faces around him, then keyed the microphone again. Flight 447, this is Lieutenant Colonel Martinez, Emergency Flight Operations. I need a complete status report. Colonel Martinez? Came the surprised voice of Captain Rodriguez. Rodriguez here, former captain, 82nd Transport Wing. Sir, we have multiple system failures. Hydraulics are gone, flight controls are marginal, and we're losing altitude. I've got 180 souls on board, and I'm not sure I can bring them down safely. Tyler felt the familiar calm that had once made him one of the Air Force's most trusted pilots in crisis situations. Copy that, Captain. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. First, what's your current altitude and airspeed? Currently at 8,500 feet, airspeed 180 knots. I've been circling to burn fuel and try to troubleshoot, but the problems are cascading faster than I can solve them. Tyler turned to Sarah. I need current wind conditions, runway status, and emergency vehicle positioning. His tone was now purely professional, and Sarah found herself responding automatically to his authority. Winds are 270 at 12 knots, gusting to 18. Runway 34L is clear. Emergency crews are positioning now. Tyler nodded, then returned to the radio. Captain Rodriguez, here's what we're going to do. You're going to make a straight-in approach to runway 34L. No more circling. We need to get you on the ground before you lose more altitude or systems. Sir, with respect, I don't think you understand. Without hydraulics, I have maybe 20% control authority. A standard approach isn't going to work. I understand perfectly, Captain. I also understand that you have options you haven't considered yet. Tyler's voice carried the confidence of someone who had been in similar situations. You're thinking like a civilian pilot right now. I need you to think like a military pilot. Morrison leaned toward Tyler. What's your plan? Tyler held up a hand, focusing entirely on the radio communication. Captain, I need you to reduce power to 60% and start a gradual descent. Target 180 knots. Descent rate 500 feet per minute. Use your rudder for primary directional control. The hydraulic loss won't affect that as much. Copy, reducing power. Sir, may I ask where you're positioned? Are you in the tower? Tyler looked around the control room, at the faces watching him with a mixture of skepticism and growing hope. I'm wherever I need to be, Captain. Right now, I need you to trust my instructions. You're going to make an approach that's not in any textbook, but it's one that will get your passengers home safely. Over the next 20 minutes, Tyler guided Captain Rodriguez through a series of emergency procedures that none of the civilian controllers had ever heard. He talked the pilot through using engine thrust for altitude control, explained how to compensate for the loss of hydraulic pressure in the control surfaces, and most importantly, gave him the confidence to attempt a landing that seemed impossible. Flight 447, you're looking good, Tyler said as the aircraft appeared on final approach. Maintain current heading. Adjust power as needed for glide slope. You're flying this aircraft better than it has any right to be flown. Thank you, sir. Sir, if I may ask, where did you learn these procedures? This isn't standard emergency protocol. Tyler watched the lights of Flight 447 growing larger through the tower windows. You learn them in places where standard protocol gets people killed, Captain. Focus on your approach. The landing was not pretty. Flight 447 touched down hard, bounced once, then settled onto the runway with a screech of tires and the roar of reverse thrust. But it was on the ground, and it was safe. The control room erupted in cheers, but Tyler was already stepping back from the radio console, his moment of authority fading as quickly as it had appeared. Incredible, Morrison said, turning to face Tyler. That was absolutely incredible. How did you know those procedures? Tyler began collecting the empty pizza boxes. Experience. Experience where? What unit were you with? What's your background? Tyler paused at the door of the control room. For a moment, the other controllers saw something in his expression that suggested depths they couldn't fathom: years of training, missions they couldn't imagine, and experiences that had shaped him in ways that delivering pizza could never undo. Does it matter? Tyler asked quietly. 180 people are going home tonight. That's what matters. Sarah stepped forward. It matters to us. You just saved 180 lives. We don't even know your last name. Tyler smiled, the first genuine smile any of them had seen from him. My last name is Martinez, and I deliver pizza. Before anyone could respond, Tyler was gone, leaving behind only questions and the lingering sense that they had just witnessed something extraordinary. Morrison immediately began making phone calls. Within an hour, he had contacted military personnel offices, trying to track down any record of a Lieutenant Colonel Martinez who had served as a pilot. What he found was a file so heavily classified that even his security clearance wasn't sufficient to access most of it. What he could learn was limited but impressive. Tyler Martinez, former Air Force pilot, decorated veteran of multiple overseas deployments, expert in emergency flight operations and aircraft recovery. The file also contained a notation about early retirement due to operational circumstances, a military euphemism that could mean anything from injury to psychological trauma to classified incidents that couldn't be discussed. The next evening, Tyler arrived for his regular delivery route as if nothing had happened. Word had spread throughout the airport about the mysterious pizza delivery pilot, and staff members who had never paid attention to him before now watched him with curious respect. Sarah was waiting when Tyler reached the control tower. "I tried to find information about you," she said as Tyler set down the pizza order. "Find anything interesting?" "Not much. Mostly classified." Sarah paused. "Why are you delivering pizza when you could be flying for the airlines?" Tyler looked through the tower windows at the runways below, where aircraft continued their endless cycles of arrival and departure. Flying for airlines means schedules, regulations, routine. After what I did before, routine seemed like something worth having. "What did you do before?" Tyler was quiet for a long moment. "Things that were necessary at the time. Things that kept people safe. Things that I couldn't keep doing forever." Sarah sensed there was more to the story, but also sensed that Tyler wasn't ready to share it. "Captain Rodriguez called today. He wanted to thank you personally." "No need. He did the flying. I just talked." "You did more than just talk. You saved 180 lives." Tyler shrugged. "I was in the right place at the right time. Were you? Or have you been in the right place for 2 years, waiting for the right time?" The question hung in the air. Tyler collected payment for the pizzas and headed toward the door, but Sarah's voice stopped him. "Tyler, if something like this happens again..." He turned back to her. "It won't. How can you be sure?" Tyler smiled. "Because lightning doesn't strike twice, and because miracles are supposed to be rare." But Sarah was wrong about lightning not striking twice. 3 months later, during a severe winter storm, a small private aircraft with a family of 4 aboard lost power and navigation systems while trying to reach Denver International. Once again, Tyler was in the control tower making a delivery when the emergency call came in. Once again, the quiet pizza delivery guy stepped forward and guided an aircraft safely to ground. This time, Morrison was ready with questions Tyler couldn't deflect. This time, there were reporters who had heard about the mysterious pilot who worked as a delivery driver. This time, Tyler's carefully constructed anonymity began to crumble. Within a week, Tyler Martinez was no longer delivering pizzas. His story had spread through aviation communities, military networks, and eventually mainstream media. The Air Force quietly approached him about returning to active duty. 3 major airlines offered him positions. Aviation schools wanted him as an instructor, but Tyler declined them all. Instead, he accepted a position as an emergency flight instructor, working with commercial pilots on crisis management and emergency procedures. It was a role that let him use his skills without the operational pressures that had driven him away from military service. "Why emergency instruction?" Sarah asked when Tyler stopped by the control tower to say goodbye to his former delivery route. "Because," Tyler said, "everyone deserves to know how to bring their people home safely." Tyler Martinez never spoke publicly about the classified missions that had made him one of the military's most skilled emergency pilots. He never discussed the operational circumstances that had ended his active duty career. But he did continue to serve in his own way, training other pilots to handle the impossible situations that he had once faced routinely. And sometimes, late at night, when air traffic controllers faced emergencies that pushed them beyond their normal procedures, they remembered the pizza delivery guy who had taught them that heroes often come in the most unexpected packages. The families of Flight 447's passengers never knew the name of the voice that had guided their loved ones safely home. But they knew that someone, somewhere, had cared enough about strangers to step forward when stepping forward mattered most. That knowledge was enough. Sometimes, it's all anyone needs to know about the quiet heroes who walk among us, delivering pizza and miracles with equal dedication. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification to hear more stories about the extraordinary people hiding in plain sight. These stories matter. These people matter. And you never know when you might meet one of them. If the story touched you, please leave a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Your support helps us share more stories about the silent heroes who make our world better, one quiet act of courage at a time.